Long Beach, California, December 2nd, 1967, Saturday evening, 6:15. Outside the Long Beach Arena, the Pacific is somewhere in the darkness beyond the parking lot, the way it always is in this part of California. Present but invisible, felt rather than seen, a weight in the air that has nothing to do with the weather. The evening is cool, not cold. The kind of California December that people from other states refuse to accept as real winter, and people who grew up here refuse to apologize for. Inside, 2,000 people are leaving. The International Karate Championships, the biggest martial arts tournament on the West Coast, the event that fighters from California and Nevada and Arizona and Oregon and Washington have been training toward for months, the event that a handful of competitors traveled from as far as Texas and New York to attend, is finished. The trophies have been given out. The final bouts have been fought. The judges have made their decisions, and the decisions are recorded, and the records will be talked about in gyms up and down the coast for the next year, maybe longer, because this is the kind of event that becomes a reference point. People will say, "Do you remember Long Beach, 67? The way people say, "Do you remember where you were when?" 2,000 people are moving through the corridors in the particular way crowds move after something they came specifically to witness. Not hurried, not dawdling, but processing. Conversations running between people who have just shared several hours of watching something they care about. What they saw, what they thought about what they saw, who was better than expected, who disappointed, whether the judging on the third semifinal was correct, whether it was even close. The air in the corridors still carries the residue of the evening, the collective attention of 2,000 people, the sound of impact and the sound of scoring and the sound of an arena crowd responding to a well-executed technique. And it has not yet fully dissipated. It is still there. You can feel it if you have ever been in a building after something significant has happened inside it. The main arena is emptying, but the backstage area is not. Back here, past the corridor that runs alongside the equipment storage room, past the tournament officials' table where 3 men in sport coats are still reviewing scorecards with the careful attention of people who know their decisions will be disputed by someone, past the vendors who are breaking down their equipment displays and counting what sold and what didn't. Back here, the post-competition world is still fully alive. Coaches talking to their fighters about what worked and what didn't, not with cruelty, but with the particular directness that serious coaches use, because there is no time for anything less direct. Fighters who advanced celebrating with the specific joy of people who have earned something by doing a hard thing well. Fighters who did not advance carrying themselves with the specific quietness of people who are deciding whether what happened today means they need to work harder or work differently, or simply accept that on this particular evening, someone else was better. At the end of the narrow corridor, through a heavy door with a push bar, is the fighter's locker room. It is not a glamorous space. No one designed it to be glamorous. It is a large rectangular room with concrete floors, polished smooth by decades of foot traffic, and fluorescent lights overhead that give everything a slightly flattened, unforgiving quality. The kind of light that makes people look exactly as tired as they are. Metal lockers run along the far wall, each one painted the same institutional gray, some of them with combination locks, some of them hanging open. Wooden benches run down the center of the room in 2 long rows, the wood worn smooth and dark in the places where people have sat for years. At the back, a row of sinks with mirrors above them, and beyond that, the showers, and the sound of water running, and the steam that comes out from under the shower room door in slow curls. The air in here is its own thing. Sweat, which is honest and straightforward. Liniment oil, sharp and medicinal. The smell of muscles that have been asked to do a great deal and have been rewarded with something that helps them recover. Canvas and cotton from the GI fabric that 15 fighters are either still wearing or have just taken off. Underneath all of it, something harder to name. The smell of effort, maybe, or of competition, or simply of a group of people who have all spent the last several hours doing something physically and mentally demanding and are now in the particular state that follows. Not exhausted, exactly. Not relaxed. Something between the two. the body winding down from a high but not yet arrived at rest. 15 fighters are scattered through the space in various stages of the transition from competitor back to person. Near the door, 2 men from Arizona are sitting on the bench with their gear bags at their feet, unlacing their belts with the slow deliberateness of people whose fingers are still slightly stiff from competition. They are talking quietly about a flight they need to catch in 3 hours. One of them won his division. The other did not make it past the quarterfinals, and he is handling this with the dignity of someone who has lost before and knows that the work of processing it happens later, alone, not here, not now. By the middle lockers, a fighter from Oregon is pulling a flannel shirt over his head, his competition clothes already folded and packed. He fought 4 bouts today and won 2 of them and lost 2 of them, which is a record that means something. It means he is good enough to be here, not yet good enough to take this particular event, which is information he will carry back to his gym on Monday morning and do something with. At the sinks, 3 men are washing their faces with the focused attention of people performing an act that is partly about water and partly about the transition it represents, washing off the competition, washing off the performance of it, coming back to the ordinary face you wear when no one is watching and no one is judging and no score is being kept. Against the far wall, a young fighter is sitting alone on the end of the bench with his elbows on his knees and his eyes on the floor, not visibly upset, not visibly anything, just quiet in the way that some competitors go quiet after a hard loss, turned inward, running the tape, replaying sequences, trying to find the precise moment where the bout went in a direction he did not intend. He will be here a while. No one is disturbing him. Everyone in this room understands that particular silence. It has its own kind of respect. The door opens. Joe Louis comes in. He is carrying his trophy. Heavyweight division, first place. It is a substantial piece. A brass figure mounted on a dark wooden base, his name engraved on a small metal plate near the bottom. The kind of trophy that has actual weight to it, that you can feel the meaning of when you pick it up, that will look correct on a shelf because it was made to look correct on a shelf. He holds it in his right hand, loosely, the way someone holds something familiar, though he has only owned it for about 40 minutes. He is 24 years old, 6 feet tall, 185 pounds, broad shoulders that carry themselves not through any conscious effort at presence, but simply because that is how they are built, like the architecture of someone who was always going to end up doing something physical with their life, who was always going to find their way to a place like this. Thick arms, hands that look like they have been used extensively and with purpose. His face is composed, not performing composure, actually composed, the way some competitors are after winning, when the relief of it has settled, and what is left is something quieter and more solid than celebration. He set a fast pace in every bout tonight. That is what people will say tomorrow. That is what the coaches in the corridor were already saying as he walked past them. The footwork was different, more committed, more rhythmic, the kind of movement that doesn't give an opponent a stationary target. The combination work was faster than anyone expected from a heavyweight. He took hits. He always takes hits. Everyone does. That is the nature of competition at this level. But his hits landed more. He finds an open section of bench and sets the trophy down beside him. He works the knot out of his belt with practiced hands and begins the unhurried business of changing. A fighter named Chuck Norris is 3 lockers down. He is 27, lean, with a dark mustache and the quiet, watchful manner of someone who is always measuring the situation without appearing to measure it. He fought in a different weight division. He had a good night. Better than good, though you would not know it from looking at him, because this is how he processes things, internally, without much visible display. He glances at Lewis's trophy without comment. In this room, trophies are not commented on immediately. They are noted, the way significant things are noted, and discussed when the moment is right, and the moment is not immediately after the person who won it has walked through the door. Someone near the back says something about the highway traffic going north, and someone else responds, and the conversation about the traffic becomes a brief conversation about where people are eating tonight and whether the steakhouse on Pine Street is still open this late on a Saturday. Ordinary conversation, The kind that fills a space after something extraordinary has finished, because ordinary things are also real things, and after a long day of competition, a person wants to know where they are eating dinner. Louis gets his GI top off, works the sleeves, drapes it over the locker door. He has a bruise developing on his left forearm from a block in the second bout. Not serious, nothing broken, the kind of bruise that will be purple tomorrow and yellow in a week and gone in 2. He looks at it without particular concern. The fighter from Arizona who won his division catches Louis's eye from across the room. He gives a nod. Not elaborate, just a nod. The specific nod that one competitor gives another after they have both navigated the same difficult thing on the same difficult night, and both came through it. And there is a kind of recognition in that which does not require words, because words would actually make it smaller. Louis nods back. The shower room door opens and a fighter comes out with a towel around his shoulders, still damp, carrying his competition clothes bundled under one arm. He is from somewhere in Nevada, Las Vegas, someone said, though no one in this room is entirely sure. And he fought well in the early rounds and ran into something in the semifinals that he did not expect and could not adequately answer in the time available. He sits down at the bench with the towel still around his shoulders and stares at nothing for a moment, and then starts carefully folding his GI, which is an activity with enough simple structure to it that it gives the hands something to do while the mind does its slower work. The fluorescent lights hum. This is the sound this room makes under everything else. A low, continuous hum that you stop hearing after a few minutes, but that is always there. Underneath the conversations and the locker sounds and the running water, the building's own kind of breathing. Louis has his street clothes on now. Jeans, a plain shirt. He looks like a person and not a competitor, which is the point of this room. This is where that transition happens, where the version of yourself that you bring to competition gives way to the version that drives home afterward and makes coffee in the morning and has conversations that have nothing to do with fighting. He picks the trophy up again, looks at it. Not with vanity, not turning it in the light, not admiring his own name on the plate. More the way a person looks at something they have been working toward for long enough that holding it still requires a moment to feel real. He was 18 months out of the Marines when he started competing seriously. He has told this story before, in gyms, to students, to journalists who asked. The discipline translated, the capacity for discomfort translated, the understanding that you could ask your body to do considerably more than your body initially wanted to do, and that it would comply if you were consistent and patient and willing to be uncomfortable for long enough, that translated entirely. What did not translate directly, what he had to learn from the ground up, was the technical vocabulary of karate, the specific ways in which technique generates power, in which angle and timing and positioning combine to produce an outcome that raw strength alone cannot reliably produce. He had to learn to be an athlete in a new language, which is one of the hardest things a person can do because it requires becoming a beginner at a point in your life when you are no longer comfortable being a beginner. He learned it anyway. The room is thinning now. The Arizona fighters have finished packing and said their goodbyes and gone. The man from Nevada has folded his GI and put it away and left quietly without making much of a departure. The young fighter who was sitting alone at the end of the bench has come back to himself sufficiently to begin packing his bag, slowly, still quiet, but no longer quite so inward. Two fighters near the door are having a conversation about a tournament in San Jose in March, whether it is worth the drive, whether the competition field will be strong enough to be useful, whether the entry fees have changed since last year. The ordinary business of athletes finishing a competition and returning to their lives. Louis sets the trophy back down beside him and laces up his street shoes and does not rush any of it. He has nowhere to be in the next 15 minutes that matters more than this moment, and he seems to understand that certain moments deserve their full duration, that the impulse to move on quickly from something you worked hard for is an impulse worth resisting. Outside in the corridor, the last of the tournament officials is turning off the lights over the scoring table. The vendors have their equipment packed, and are wheeling it toward the loading dock. The 2,000 people who were here are mostly in their cars now, in the parking lot, headlights coming on in the darkness, the sound of engines starting, people already on their way back to wherever they came from carrying the evening with them. In the locker room, the fluorescent lights hum. A championship trophy sits on a wooden bench next to a 24-year-old who earned it. The shower in the back is still running. Someone left it on. Nobody moves to turn it off. The room lets it run.